Remember in our end of year special when I said that I had yet to play Tetris Forever, but that I knew I'd have liked it?
Yes.
Well, I have played it now, and it's probably one of the best things that I've played for some time, forever, for all time.
Wonderful.
I've been really interested in these Digital Eclipse Gold Master sets since the first entry, The Making of Karateka. And since then, they've gone on to do a massive retrospective of Jeff Minter's work. That's the legend behind Tempest
Mm.
2000, TXK, Polybius, etc. And now for their third entry, they did Tetris Forever. And all of these sets are basically playable timeline documentaries that mix games you can actually pick up and have a go at with archival footage, with modern commissioned interviews, with incredibly high resolution scans of like marketing materials, with lovely 3D manipulable box arts for all the games you're looking at. There's advertisements, there's manuals, there's everything. I had been waiting for a physical release for any or all of these for a while, which are now coming next month. But it was the Steam sale, and now I own them all. And I'm gleefully working my way through all three sets, essentially, as a matter of duty. Because Tetris is Tetris, I started there, so I started with the third set. I'm going backwards through the others, but Tetris Forever is, whoa, like I'll say, as an initial headline, this Gold Master format that they've kind of put together, Digital Eclipse, it's genuinely groundbreaking. And I think it advances games preservation and games literacy and games legitimacy by like several leagues. I think it totally changes what these collections should look like.
Mm.
It's not just there's ROMs on a CD or ROMs on a cartridge. Have a go, that's your lot. It gives everything context. It makes games make sense in a way that I don't think you often have with retro collections. Within the first hour of playing Tetris Forever, I'd watched an initial interview with Tetris creator Alexei Pajitnov. I'd seen high quality scans of the exact childhood maths books and toys he spoke about taking inspiration from as a boy. I'd watched his footage of him showing a group how his original 90s Electronica 60 workstation, that's the exact machine he programmed Tetris on, like showing them how it functioned. And then straight afterwards, it was like, do you want to play a version of that game as well? Like a painstakingly recreated version of the seminal Tetris entry. Do you want to play it in Russian? You can have it translated if you want, but we've got the original. You know, as it looked, as it sounded when Alexei Pajitnov first programmed it in 1984. And if it stopped there, that alone basically would have been worth the asking price to me as a Tetris superfan.
Yeah.
But there's so much more to this set. I have basically been able to play each and every ROM in this collection with zero baggage or friction on my Steam Deck, or more recently on my Ambernic, for a long time. So the games were never going to be like the main draw of Tetris Forever, but still playing them in context just changes them so completely, because I've now probably played that electronica version of the game, the first version of Tetris, for 3 or 4 hours to chase some in-game achievements. But just because it's different, you know, it's Tetris viewed in a slightly different way. A later entry in the Tetris universe called Hatris, which is a game I'd played for maybe 5 minutes. Yeah, 5 minutes, whilst channel surfing through ROM lists, has gone from being a joke game, because before I was like, oh, it's a block dropping game with hats. Great. But it's now like a new favorite, because hearing the passion that Alexei Pajitnov has for that creation, being able to spin the 3D Famicom box art around to pour over its really beautiful design, being able to read all of the copy text of his US ad campaign, it's become my new bedtime game on my SP, to just have around and try and get better at something that I never would have given that time to if I hadn't heard him say, I really love Hatris. I really like making it. Like, the narrative, though, of this whole set is where the package really, really shines. Like, the timeline works so well to properly give like a background to how the game developed, how it was licensed, how it kind of spun out into different directions. When we both watched Apple TV's Tetris movie, we said it was fine, it was enjoyable, but it embellished a story that didn't really need to be tarted up.
Yeah.
And Tetris Forever, when viewed just as a documentary artifact, if you don't play any of the games, if you don't engage with anything more than just the video parts, it is 100 times better than that movie. The mess of contracts, the political intrigue, the wheeling and dealing. You don't need Taron Egerton to sell this. You know, seeing Alexei and Hank Rogers, that's the man responsible for licensing, amongst other things, Tetris for Game Boy at its kind of earliest, when they're reminiscing together over stacks of archival footage that Hank Rogers shot as cover, essentially, during his time in Moscow, where he was chasing the rights for the game on a literal tourist visa, like behind the Iron Curtain. It's thrilling, and in places like genuinely moving as well. At one stage, Hank Rogers is describing his first impromptu meeting with Elorg, which is essentially the state group that owns Tetris, and Pajitnov as well, and says something about only one person on the other side of that table knew anything about computer games. And there's this wonderful cutaway to Alexi's expression that's like so wholesome. Just one of like absolute love for the game he's created, but also for Henk himself as his now like super long-term business and creative partner. Like that was the first time in the set I had like an actual lump in my throat, like watching them and just seeing it's about these two people as much as it is about the game that I love to play. I think it's a very minor shame that due to licensing, the original Game Boy and NES Tetris are not playable in this bundle. But this is not a slight on the developers at all. It's like they're Nintendo published. It would mean it's borderline impossible to make them available on rival platforms like the PlayStation, the Xbox, like the PC. So unfortunately, it is what it is. And the versions of Tetris they put in this package generally are ones that sort of the Tetris company own and have kind of the rights to be able to distribute in that way. You know, I think that is literally the only blip for me. I don't know how this game, project, documentary, whatever you want to call it, would hit for a Tetris normie. But personally, this feels like the future of games education to me. Like, I genuinely had no idea how impactful it would feel watching and playing all of this stuff. Because Tetris is a very mechanical thing. You know, it's a game that's all about function. It's very pure in its design. And yet what this whole package does is expertly humanize every single aspect of its production from kind of, you know, Genesis through to where we are now, 40 years on. I think it's really easy to forget sometimes that games are products of people. And when people are arguing over whether or not games as a medium are art, I genuinely think the artifact is largely irrelevant, especially for having watched stuff like this, because the fact that a game is a communication by an individual or a team, that's the art. That's the important bit. And people make these things for other people to play, and it's that communication that is what makes games great. You know, I don't think it's whether the game itself is of great quality. It's the fact that someone made something, wanted to say something with this medium, and other people were able to interact with that and say and get something from it, whether good or bad. When you first boot up the whole collection, Tetris Forever, you're met with an Alexei Pajitnov quote that just says, "Play Tetris, my friends." And when you see that exact video clip capturing that quote in context, which is Alexei standing in Red Square in the late 80s as Hank Rogers is filming on shaky cam during their first extended meeting together on a day trip that we know followed a night of like mad prototyping and playtesting at Pajitnov's apartment, which we know followed the pair's business meeting that I mentioned earlier. It made me feel then really emotional every time I turned on Tetris Forever to play it anymore. Like just seeing those words and then having that flash of like, this is where it comes from. This is what this means to these people. And being able to see what Tetris means to all of these individuals at the very heart of its design and then careful curation and management, it's so beautiful. You know, in another interview, Hank Rogers' daughter, Maya, who is now head of the Tetris company, has to take a moment to collect herself when she's asked to describe what Tetris means to her and her family. And it might just be me getting older and soppier, but I didn't expect to have an actual tear in my eye playing through a digital Tetris documentary and archive. Just
I expected that of you.
like I love Tetris. I've talked about Tetris an unreasonable amount on this show over the years we've been doing it. But seeing this now, like I love Alexei and I love Henk. They're like the dads that I could have like an extended pool of dads, like just to go and hang out with. And I love Tetris Forever as an entry in this new kind of trailblazing series, the Goldmaster series, that I hope continues for a really, really, really long time, because I think it is absolutely astonishing stuff. I can't recommend this collection in particular highly enough. The other two, I haven't quite got through yet to be able to say that much about the other two packages, but for Tetris Forever, it's 10 out of 10 stuff. It absolutely would have probably been my game of the year last year if I'd played it. But even then, I kind of think like, does it even count as a game in that sort of sense? Whatever it is, though, a museum piece, an archive, a digital coffee table book, whatever you want to call it, it succeeds in every single thing it tries. Just, yeah, it really, really blew me away.
Good. I just going on CD keys now to see how cheap I can get it.
Yeah.
Excuse me. Tetris Forever. Check direct on Steam.
I think it's probably back up to full price now. I think the sale finished today. But there'll be another one. Give it a month.
I'll put it on the wish list.
Yeah, there's no rush. Or buy it on a physical collection in a week or two and then trade it back in if you just wanted to watch the stuff.
Just watch it on YouTube.
Do that as well if it's there.
Watch it on Twitch.
Yeah. I'll stream the whole thing.
Yeah, I'd love to watch that. 1 second, otherwise it won't go out of my mind. Tetris to your wish list. Why has it got mixed reviews?
I don't know. There's a few people in the Steam forums. I like going on the Steam discussions page because it just makes me angry a lot of the time.
Oh, wow. This game feels empty. None of the games have translations.
The Japanese games. Yeah. Yeah, released in Japan, and here is cultural artifacts.
It's not my cup of tea.
It's as well like
it's got multiple versions of Tetris, but the other versions of Tetris are boring.
It's people whinging as well about like the versions that are included. Like, okay, there's 500 different versions of Tetris over the years. You can't include everything. Neither is there any point to include everything, really. You know, for what this collection is really about, you need early versions of Tetris. You need to see where it kind of like crystallized as what it was, and you need to see kind of what it would go on to be, a few variations and what that means. You don't need any more than that. It's Tetris. You know how Tetris works.
Yeah, anyway, right. I hate people.